Right, Philip Ingram, I'm going to let you talk whatever you want to talk about in this section, because I'm genuinely still fuming. I'm on the TV.
Yeah,
I can't look at that man's face anymore.
Yeah, I've got something to do before you let me talk. Hang on, it's your dinner party list for Saturday, and I've just taken Boris's name off it.
He's not on the Christmas card list, I'll tell you that.
Well, that's the next list that I have to adjust.
It's done to our children.
So I think I've picked up that you're not a Boris fan.
Listen, we've actually got a dump. We've got a dump button. So this thing, like, if someone libels someone or someone comes on air and just says horrible words and things, we can just, like, you can just
15-second delay. Yes.
Genuinely, I'm absolutely genuinely not to swear during that was quite a feat. But I can tell you the off-air version would be very, very different.
Ted's finger was hovering. He was. I could see him going like that.
It's the justification. Here's the thing. You only have to go back. If you look at the COVID press conferences they gave in early March, every single thing that we know about COVID now, they said, and we knew in early March, and they did it anyway. When they locked down, and I supported the first lockdown for the first couple of months, because I assumed they had new information because they suddenly changed their stance, and they didn't. They lied. They lied.
Two things.
They should all be in prison. They should all be in prison.
The COVID inquiry is not going to achieve anything, and it's a complete and utter waste of time and money. And the one lesson that comes out of all of this is our politicians need to grow a pair of things that Graham said, that if a woman gets hit in them...
Testicular objects.
Yes, needs to grow something along those lines to be able to say, I got it wrong. And if our politicians would turn around every now and again and say, I'm sorry, I got it wrong, then maybe they would go up in our esteem.
Yeah, but here's an idea. Maybe you shouldn't make massive policy decisions without any evidence, which is what they did.
Well, yes.
That's what they did. That's literally what they did. We know the reason why kids wore masks for 8 hours a day in school was because Nick Sturgeon's done it. So we'll have to do it. I mean, that's not a good reason for putting masks on our children for 8 hours a day.
All of this is down to, and it's come out, a lack of planning for school closure, so a lack of planning. And we've got a current government...
Well, they weren't planning for it because they weren't going to do it because it was a stupid thing to do and it wasn't part of our pandemic plan.
Our politicians need to learn to plan. The value is not necessarily in following the plan, it's going through the process.
No, there was a plan and we ignored the plan. And you know who followed the plan? Sweden. Sweden followed the plan, and which is why they had fewer COVID deaths overall. They had fewer other deaths. They didn't trash their economy. Children didn't lose their education. They didn't close down their healthcare service. Life carried on. Relatively normal.
They've got a good, healthy outdoor lifestyle as well.
Anyway, and breathe. Right.
What else is going on?
No, well, this is the thing. I mean, this is the thing. It's kind of like it's in the past. Move on. But actually, it's kind of what happened in that period has had such long-term ramifications for trust in the police, trust in government, trust in science, children's education, mental health, physical health, our welfare claimants, our national debt. It's literally every single aspect of our life now that we are concerned about is as a result of that period.
And this is why I'm so concerned that the COVID inquiry is not going to achieve anything, because one of the single biggest threats to our security, to our future as a human race, is what the World Health Organization refer to as Disease X. It's the next pandemic that's coming through.
Yes, it's going to come out of China because America is funding China to do this sort of stupid research.
If we haven't looked at the practical lessons, then
Can I just say,
we're not prepared
also a bit concerned about the old asteroid.
Well,
no, it's going to hit. I'm just saying. And on that note, on a Tuesday morning, no, but that's the reality.
No, it's not in the next hour.
Not today. Otherwise, let's carry on normal. But here's the thing: let's make life good until then. Another inquiry that's nothing good is going to come out of, the grooming gangs inquiry, forced on the Prime Minister. Absolutely. I mean, thanks Elon Musk for that. We have a problem in this country with grooming gangs. We have a problem with people covering up grooming gangs because they don't want to be called a racist because they were largely Pakistani Muslim who were targeting white girls for that very specific reason. They were white. They were therefore worthless. We have now seen 4 months on. We were talking about on the show a lot, was it a week or two ago? Like, it's 4 months. What's happened? Now we know one of the reasons why they've not been able to find anybody is they can't find somebody who everyone will agree with they can trust. Fiona Goddard and Eliane Reynolds are two of the survivors of these grooming gangs who have brought cases. They have both quit in the last couple of days from the liaison panel, basically saying, look, we're being silenced, we're being told what questions we can ask of potential chair, and basically they're trying to whitewash it by trying to extend it to any sort of gang groups and not this particular style. But the key thing here is yes, of course there's other grooming that goes on, and of course, this happened in schools, and there are, of course, the majority of perpetrators in a white country will be white men. Of course they will be. But the key thing here was that these men were not challenged, they were not arrested, it was not stopped because of their ethnicity and their religion.
Yeah, and this was systematic, and the cover-ups go through all local society and go higher. And this is where you need someone who, as you've said, is not worried about getting a gong out of it, not worried about their longer-term career, who will do a good job, who is not going to be influenced by other things. And as I said, of the two candidates, Jim would fit that completely. And one of our callers raised concern, said, no, it needs to be a woman because they can relate to the victims, the children.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
No, Jim has dealt with children who've been victims through his position with CEOP for many, many years.
Explain CEOP what it is.
CEOP is the Child Exploitation Online Protection Centre. So a lot of the grooming starts online. Yeah. And what we see with the international paedophile rings and all the rest of it, Jim has been central to gathering the evidence.
He knows how they operate. He's one of the good ones.
He's one of the very good ones.
Yeah, well, my view is if the victims aren't happy, you say, we're going to talk to Maggie Oliver, who's a crucial whistleblower on this, and in Manchester. I think, if Maggie ain't happy with them, I'm not happy with them. Yeah. I'm willing to take her lead on this. But it all depends
what they've been briefed on these two individuals.
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
I do know Jim. I don't know Anne, unfortunately, so I can't comment on her.
Let's also talk about non-crime hate incidents, because again, police not investigating 13-year-olds turning up at A&E pregnant and beaten, and girls disappearing for 3 or 4 days from a care home because they'd been groomed. I mean, not investigating that, but they have been investigating non-crime hate incidents, some 30 a day. At one point it was 60 a day of non-crime hate incidents, but a huge number of those are basically trans activists making claims about online posts and the like. Now, after the issue of the arrest and the decision not to take any further action with Graham Linehan, the Met Police have said they're going to stop investigating non-crime hate incidents. They will continue to record them, but of course they can still be basically used against someone if they apply to work with children or with vulnerable people, work with a teacher, a social worker, a care home. They will then be stopped from working. Well, you've got a hate incident against you, so I'm afraid you may not have known about it, you may not have been investigated for it, but you have. This is still a big issue, isn't it?
It's a huge issue. And I just want to read a tweet out to you that's come to you and me from Bessie, who says, I was a police officer for 30 years. I can say with 100% certainty that all of us, if asked to deal with a non-crime hate incident, would have looked at the requester and said, are you on something? You're joking, aren't you? Or something a little bit more swearing.
They can say that. They can say that. But given that, I mean, people like, my friend Alison Pearce at the Telegraph and many others, so many people have been investigated. Now, hers actually was an alleged crime as well. But again, we're talking about hurty words on online posts. Now, the reality is, this is going on a grand scale. Most of the people this happens to either A, don't know about it. I put in a request for a subject access request. I was suggested to me by a free speech campaigners. You should put in a request and find out if you've got a non-crime hate incident against you. And we were all rather surprised to learn I didn't, because frankly, I don't know what I've been doing with my time if I don't have one.
I know.
Exactly, but I wouldn't know. And this is the thing. So, but people often don't know, and it's usually people. Again, they just they just said they're a woman, and 40% of cases of free speech union are taken up. They're just a woman who says, no, I don't want men in the toilet or in the changing rooms. I mean, these are not crimes or non-crimes. They are perfectly reasonably held legal views.
Yeah, and this is highlighting a problem at the top of our police. Someone who gets promoted up to senior levels in the police and up to chief constable or commissioner and all the rest of it should be turning around to those that are putting the political pressure, because this is coming in from political pressure, nowhere else. Yeah. And to all of these little groups, and turning around and saying, no, we're not dealing with it. We're police officers. We're dealing with proper crime. And if it crosses the line, we will deal with it. But for all of these things, no, go away. And the senior officers should be telling the politicians to go away and these groups to go away and protecting the more junior officers.
And again, my thing is, we end up paying for the compensation. We end up paying for it. No heads ever roll. Yeah. But again, I disagree with you. I do feel sorry for the junior police officers who are told go and deal with this. I mean, half of them don't even know what the law is, for goodness sake. Can I say, this ties in, I mean, Robert Jenrick was on the Breakfast Show earlier, the Shadow Justice Secretary. Basically, Tories are claiming that the government is going to allow the early release of thousands of violent criminals and rapists, having said that they would not be early release of these people. Now, again, I don't understand why anybody serves anything less than if you're sentenced to a year, you're sentenced to 5 years or 10 years. I don't care what it is. You should serve every single day of that. People say, oh, people shouldn't be let off, should be let off early for good behaviour. No, you serve extra time if there isn't good behaviour, would be the simpler thing. Maybe we'll allow 10%. 10% is enough of an incentive for someone to behave well to get out sooner. But now it's down to people basically barely even, the threats to Nigel Farage from that asylum seeker, asylum seeker, be kidding, illegal migrant. He's going to serve 5 years sentence. He's going to serve 18 months behind bars. Then he's going to be out on the streets, going to be paying for his hotel. I mean, the government was saying, like, we won't allow people who could perpetrated domestic abuse or sexual assault. But actually, a lot of violent criminals, they've not been done for a domestic abuse case, but actually they've been done for an assault, which and it doesn't count. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it is the fault of the Tories, though, for not they sentenced people for longer. They improved low sentences. But that they didn't build enough prisons.
Didn't build enough prisons, didn't come up with a policy.
I do feel sorry for Labour on this, but nevertheless, there must be a better solution.
But there is a better solution. Anyone who's a non-Brit, you take them out and you send them off to their own country and say, your problem, and you get rid of them. So,
but this is the thing.
All the foreigners.
We know, 1 in 8 people behind bars is...
Why should we as taxpayers pay for them? Just because...
Because I don't want someone who comes over here from another country to commit a rape and then be set free back to Albania.
Yeah, but if we've got the right diplomatic relations with Albania and with the majority of countries,
prison.
They will be in prison in there. I
want them to serve their full time.
And again, if they don't do that, we turn around to those countries and say, I'm sorry, we're not going to allow any of your citizens to come to this country.
Interesting
Full
point.
Stop.
Interesting point. No,
stop visas.
Yeah, if you don't want to play, we're really not bothered about coming to Albania or Pakistan, but you might be bothered about coming here.
Exactly, and Brexit gives us the ability, now that we supposedly control our borders, which we don't, to deny people... choose not to, but to deny people coming in.
Yeah. But
so
again,
we're not part of Schengen.
But there is an issue. I mean, I do think, and Labour are quite right to point out, that the Tories left this massive mess.
They did, but that's no excuse for not dealing with it.
Yeah, well, you can only build prisons so quickly. I just think an awful lot of people who are in the later stages of lower level offending, put them again, those prison camps, let's put them... those prison camps, sorry, those military camps that are not being used. Well, let's put them there.
Well, we want those for the asylum seekers.
Oh, and goodness knows how many people are going to put those.
Migrants and all the rest of it.
So, let's just talk about Prince Andrew once again as well. Lots of allegations about what his involvement with Virginia Giuffre. He's never actually faced a criminal allegation, so not in this country. Virginia Giuffre now sadly took her own life in April. Her autobiography, Nobody's Girl, published with a ghostwriter as of today. Obviously, excerpts have been out already. Now, her family members and her co-author say that Andrew being forced to give up his titles would be a victory, including losing the prince. Discussions about whether or not there should be the necessary act of Parliament. One line, basically, suggestion. I think the SNP, many other MPs are suggesting this. It's interesting, actually, the suggestion is also you can at the same time strip Peter Mandelson of his peerage as well. I'm all in favour. But we now know that, accusations Prince Andrew's team hired internet trolls to try and tarnish Giuffre's name after she accused him of having sex with her when she was being trafficked. He was deemed a security threat by the security services because he had far too many close links with a Chinese businessman who was regarded as a spy. We also now know he's not paid any rent for 20 years on Royal Lodge. Previously, the Queen Mother used to live. He's paid a peppercorn. He literally doesn't have to pay a penny. But there's lots of other questions about where his money comes from. When he paid off 12 million quid to Virginia Giuffre, 10 million to her, 2 million to charity, that money was largely apparently from the Queen. Well, what did the Queen think it was for? And what did her staff tell her? I've got issues over that. Whereas Prince Andrew and Ferguson, they never met a dodgy billionaire they didn't like, let's be honest. They had this sort of, was it a £10 million ski lodge in Switzerland or something, which they then had to sell off. They've been living the life of Riley. Yep. He hasn't had a formal job for quite a few years. Yep. And even before then, he wasn't paid anything enough to come close to the lifestyle that he leads, even with no rent. But also, crucially, this Royal Lodge is part of the Crown Estate. He's been given a freebie, massive mansion to live in. Not paying rent, even though the Crown Estate is managed on behalf of the British public. they're supposed to charge rent and make sure that it makes money for because the public end up paying. So we've been subsidising this guy's rent.
Crown estates slightly more difficult in that it raises money for the Crown. A big percentage of that money for the Crown goes to into the Exchequer, and therefore it's taken away from the King, and therefore that pays for the royal family and all the rest of it. So yes, we are paying for it, but it's minute compared to the rest of the stuff.
Well, I think most people right now struggling to pay their rent and their mortgage will find it a bit sodding rich. That this very rich prince apparently didn't have to pay a penny for a mansion.
I'm more concerned about what he's got up to and what he's getting away with potentially and allegedly,
and what he knew,
and those that are around him.
There's no way he didn't know what Jeffrey Epstein was up to, because it was blatantly obvious at all times to anyone else.
And again, there's stories of Sarah Ferguson having gone to meet Jeffrey Epstein. There's stories of them taking their children to the actual
after he'd been convicted.
Correct.
After he'd been convicted
and then the links to so many other people, and that's what needs to come out. And we need to get into a society where it's not going to go away at all, and it shouldn't go away.
But him sort of becoming Mr. Andrew Windsor or whatever, losing his title, pushed out of his house, that doesn't make it go away. He's still the King's brother. He's still the late Queen's son, and he's still closely linked. And again, it's very interesting that the two names that have most emerged in these Epstein files that have been gradually, slowly leaked from American government, they have been involved. Peter Mandelson, a Brit, Prince Andrew, a Brit. Why is that?
The cynic in me turns around and says because it's coming out as part of books that are released in the United States, and you put those names in there and it creates more clickbait and it sells more books. So there's a very cynical approach to it, and might there be cover-up of some of the more senior Americans who might have got involved in it as well, where they're using their wealth and everything else to try and keep things hidden, and it's very easy then to find other nations' victims or perpetrators and throw them out to be your victim.
I have never been a conspiracy theorist on any topic whatsoever, and always just say to people, no, you're quite wrong. But if there's one thing I know for sure, Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself in prison.
Exactly.
There's just no way in the world. A man who'd beaten it every single time. He'd managed to get away with it the last time. He'd been getting away with it for years. He had very important friends. He was a multi-billionaire. There's no way in the world that man thought the game was up. He hadn't even been convicted at that point of the huge raft of crimes that did get brought.
And therefore there's so many more powerful people.
Not a chance in the world. And who are the people behind that? But there we go. Got lots of calls on the board. Can't wait to get to those. We found a caller, Dave, who apparently hates Boris Johnson more than I do. That's quite a feat, Dave. I'm going to ask you to prove that in a few moments. Love to hear your thoughts on non-crime hate incidents being dropped as investigations by the Met Police, not by anyone else, just the Met, but they'll still record them, but also the sabotage of the grooming gangs inquiry and anything else you want to talk about as well.